r/entitled parents. Entitled mother at GameStop involved the police and had me in handcuffs. Story 1. Last Saturday, I visited GameStop to catch up with a friend and browse their merchandise. I had my eye on an Xbox X and a PS4, along with some games, and this visit was going to make me spend more money there than ever before. I spent about an hour or two chatting with 3 people, one employee, my friend, and the manager. While discussing the specifications of the consoles and the differences between PS4 versions with the employee, the manager stepped out for lunch. Shortly after, an entitled mother and her entitled kids walked in and went straight to the Nintendo Switch section. As I browsed the games, the employee approached them to offer assistance. She asked some questions, but I tuned them out as my friend and I discussed certain games. About 20 minutes later, I had made my decision. The employee was gathering everything I wanted: a PS4 Pro, 2 controllers, a PSVR, 5 games, an Xbox One X, an Elite controller, an Astro headset, and 4 games. My friend mentioned a game he wanted, and I decided to buy it for him as a token of gratitude for helping me out a few months ago. He thanked me, and that seemed to be it. Well, almost. However, the entitled parent had noticed what was happening and overheard our conversation. She approached me and asked if I could help her and her children by buying them a game. Politely, I declined, explaining that my friend was helping me and I was just returning the favor. She gave me a perplexed look and said, "You're buying things for him. Why won't you buy something for my kids?" I clarified that my friend was very close to me and I was simply showing him appreciation. Furthermore, her children were too young to play the games I was buying as they were rated M for mature. I had no intention of purchasing something unsuitable for them. She then instructed her kids to beg for the video games, and I turned to her, expressing that teaching children to beg for free items wasn't responsible parenting. While I was speaking with my friend, I was suddenly grabbed by 2 children who were pulling on me and begging me to get them something. I gently removed their arms from me to maintain distance, and this action made the kids cry. The entitled mother accused me of inappropriate behavior and claimed I had touched her children. She threatened to call the police. Moments before she dialed the police, the manager returned and witnessed me holding the kids and pushing them away. He instructed me to release them without hearing my side of the story. I explained what had transpired, but he seemed skeptical as he had only observed that part of the commotion. He engaged in a conversation with the woman, and she completely fabricated the story, accusing me of attempting to bribe her into allowing her kids to be touched when no one was looking and trying to use the games I was purchasing as leverage. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of her claims and ask, "Really? Do you believe this?" However, it was too late. He was already on the phone with the police. Throughout the commotion, the other employees were in the back of the store, and I felt isolated. I had witnessed similar situations before where people tend to believe the woman's side of the story. I may have held some preconceptions, but it's not uncommon for individuals to automatically side with women in such circumstances. The police arrived 10 minutes later. When I attempted to explain the situation to them, the woman interjected and hastily presented her version first. She recounted the same fabricated story to the officers, and the manager reiterated it. The officers glanced at me and proceeded to handcuff me without considering my side of the story. I was utterly shocked, facing allegations based on lies. Finally, I was granted an opportunity to share my account with the police, and my friends supported my story. Nevertheless, they insisted that Karen's narrative seemed more credible than mine. I found it hard to believe that they were accepting her word without any evidence. Security cameras were positioned in every corner of the building, so I suggested they review the footage. The woman's demeanor suddenly changed, and she attempted to backpedal, stating that she hadn't really wished to press charges. However, the police insisted that she stay at the store until they wrap up the investigation. The manager and one of the police officers examined the surveillance footage and promptly returned to remove my handcuffs. They issued an apology, but the damage had already been done. They inquired whether I wanted to file charges against Karen, but I declined. Nonetheless, I didn't want her to escape with just a slap on the wrist. They talked to her outside and discovered that she had an outstanding warrant for a separate matter. I was utterly perplexed by the chaotic commotion that had happened. The manager's handling of the situation had been unprofessional. I feel sorry for him, but he should have initially reviewed the surveillance video instead of immediately summoning the police. If he had done so, the woman wouldn't have been arrested and he wouldn't have lost his job. My primary concern lies with the children entangled in this ordeal. It's disheartening that they're being raised by someone who believes that begging and deceit are the only means to get what they want in life. So here's another entry in Karen's Hall of Fame. The guy was at GameStop, prepared to splurge in games using the money he earned through hard work. Then, out of the blue, an entitled parent swoops in, turning his day upside down by a factor of 100. I mean, come on, the guy here has zero obligation to fund some random kid's game. They're not family, they're total strangers. Even if you see someone loading up on gadgets and games, you can't just waltz over and demand they buy your kid's stuff. These days, appearances can be deceiving. Give folks the benefit of the doubt, like, hey, maybe they've been busting their hump at work and treating themselves today. Everyone deserves a little fun. Like they say, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And no, Karen, you just can't go shamelessly someone just because they didn't give you free food or games for that matter. Now on to our Karen. She might truly be a well-meaning mom just trying to make her kids happy, but what she did, causing a ruckus and acting like she owned the place, is just inexcusable, regardless of her reasons. She went full-on manipulator mode, dragging her kids, the manager, and the police into her little drama. That's some toxic behavior right there, using people as pawns and plain old it's like poison. If Karen had been a better mom, she could have engaged in friendly small talk with the guy and maybe let the kids share their favorite games, instead of just begging for something from a perfect stranger, then going into beast mode after her request was denied. Parents don't need to cater to every whim of their children just to make them happy. Instead, teach them about contentment, humility, self-respect, and respect for others. After all, material possessions won't bring lasting happiness. Then you've got folks like the manager who just makes things worse, and those cops, they sometimes jump to conclusions without digging deeper. Everyone should remember to do their work professionally. Mistakes have consequences, and a simple "oops, my bad" won't fix them. So the question is, did Karen finally learn her lesson? Some might say the guy should have pressed charges and had social welfare step in, but who really knows, right? The takeaway here, don't be a Karen. Let's all try a dash of compassion in our daily grind and ditch all the envy and hatred.
Psst, guess what? This video is sponsored by none other than me and my awesome crew at Rufus Rugs. We're the masters of creating custom, hand-tufted rugs that truly capture who you are. Whether you're looking to turn one of our intriguing thumbnails into a rug, for purely academic reasons, of course, or you're eager to transform your room with some epic anime-inspired designs, we can get it done for you. These are all handmade by me and the team from Canada. No dropshipping BS here. Real, handmade custom rugs by me and my friends. Click the first link in the description to learn more.
Story 2. So, first things first, this isn't my story but my friend's. He shared it with me in great detail since it happened just a few days ago. Yes, he's perfectly fine with me posting it since we both love sharing stories like this on this subreddit. A bit of context, I'm on mobile and my English is not my first language. Now let's introduce the characters in our story. My friend, Karen, the entitled parent, a curious kid, and a cool ticket inspector. So without further ado, here's a story. My friend was on his way to the town where he was doing his apprenticeship, taking the usual 6-hour train ride. He boarded the train and found his reserved seat, a configuration where 2 seats face each other with a table in between. And there she was, the Karen of our story, accompanied by her little girl. After a while, my friend got a bit bored, so he took out his Nintendo Switch and started playing. The curious kid asked, "Mommy, what is that?" She was pointing at the console. Karen replied, "A PlayStation." How on earth could she mistake a Switch for a PlayStation? Well, maybe she's just a clueless boomer. An hour later, my friend, growing weary of gaming, was on the verge of stowing away his Switch when the unexpected occurred. Before he could even put away his gadget, Karen abruptly seized his arm. Karen said bluntly, "My little girl can play with that now." My friend responded, "No, I'd rather not. The games I have aren't suitable for her." He had The Witcher 3, Warframe, and probably Mario Kart. Karen retorted, "We'll see about that." The entitled parent reached for my friend's Switch, but he quickly pulled it away and packed it up. My friend firmly stated, "No, this is my Switch, and I don't want strangers messing with it. You shouldn't be so rude, that's bad behavior, and I don't want my angel to see that," the entitled parent said. "So give that thing to me," Karen demanded. My friend responded, "Still, I won't give you my Switch," end of story. You teens these days always disrespecting adults and doing as you please. Not everyone can afford things like your parents. They probably bought that for you, so the least you can do is let other kids play with it. Karen scoffed. My friend explained, "Excuse me, I'm already working and earning my own money, which is how I bought it." "Yeah, right," Karen muttered. Finally, the cool ticket inspector weighed in. "Sorry, ma'am, but could you leave the guy alone? Otherwise, I need to ask you to change seats." Karen suddenly fell silent. The cool inspector inspected my friend's ticket and then turned to Karen only to find out that she didn't have one. "I'll issue a bill for you and send it to your profile. You'll have to pay it later," he said. The cool inspector immediately searched for her profile with her identity. Then he shot her a disinterested look and said, "You'll need to get off the train at the next stop, Karen." After a long argument between the cool ticket inspector and Karen, it became evident that Karen was a regular fare dodger, never settling a single bill. You see, my friend and I reside in Germany, where such incidents are meticulously recorded. Furthermore, she had been previously billed for these infractions. Our largest railway company, the DB, maintains profiles of individuals caught evading fares, enabling them to verify this information. As a result, she's now banned from using the train until she clears all her outstanding fees. With the entitled parent gone, my friend enjoyed the luxury of having 4 seats all to himself for the duration of his trip. Karens really need to sign up for a crash course in good manners. I mean, it's just common sense that you don't swipe someone's Nintendo Switch, especially when you and the guy are total strangers. Who knows what kind of mayhem a kid could do on that thing? Luckily, the guy in this story handled the situation with some serious grace and politeness. It's pretty clear Karen's not exactly rolling in dough, considering she can't even pay for train tickets. But that doesn't give her a free pass to try and score her child a Switch gaming session. Well, yeah, there are plenty of disadvantaged individuals in the world, but that is still no excuse for being rude. And let's not forget how she had the gall to interrogate the guy, demanding to know how he got the console. Seriously, where do these folks find the nerve? Her antics turned that train ride into quite a show, bothering her fellow passengers and embarrassing herself and her own kid in the process. It's almost as if she's as clueless about respect as she is about what a Switch is. It's super annoying when people act all entitled, spreading negativity and boosting their egos in the most toxic way possible, all while messing up the day for those of us just trying to go about our business. Props to the cool train inspector, though, for swooping in and handling the situation, even though his job is mainly about checking tickets. The lesson here, we don't need to make life difficult for others just to keep our kids entertained. Story 3. This incident occurred just the other day, and after sharing the story with friends and family, a few of them suggested that I share it here. The scene was a Southwest Airlines flight. I was seated in a window seat next to 2 lovely women who, while directly across from us, there was an empty seat, a mother and her son. The flight was preparing for takeoff. For those who aren't aware, passengers are required to remain seated with their seatbelts fastened at the beginning of the flight until the captain provides further instructions. I was securely strapped into my seat and decided to retrieve my Nintendo Switch from my carry-on bag under my feet. "Excuse me, ma'am," a woman said. At first, I didn't realize that the mother in the seat across from me was trying to get my attention. She unbuckled her seatbelt and moved to the empty seat next to the aisle closer to me. "Ma'am, you, with the video game," she exclaimed. I raised my head, but the woman next to me also nudged me. "That lady wants your attention," the woman next to me whispered. I turned my head to see the woman leaning across the aisle with her hands on the armrest of the aisle seat in my row. "I'm sorry," she began. "I just wanted to know if there was any way my son could use that game for a little while." "I'm sorry," I began. "My Nintendo Switch is very important to me. I don't feel comfortable letting anyone I don't know use it. I don't even let my sisters play with it." I was about to continue, but the woman interrupted me. "Oh, my son is not like most kids," she replied. "He's not destructive. His cousin has one of those, and he knows how to play." She smiled and extended her hand. The 2 women seated next to me looked at me, seemingly in disbelief. "I'm sorry," I said again. "I just don't feel comfortable. I brought it for myself." "How old are you?" the woman asked with a huff, retracting her hand and slapping it on her lap. "I'm 25, but I don't see how that matters," I replied, growing increasingly uncomfortable. "Well," she began, sounding agitated, "my son is 8. This is an hour and 45-minute flight, and he just wants something to do. Can't he use it for a few minutes?" Already feeling annoyed, I replied, "No, I'm not comfortable with that, and I expect you to understand since this is my property. I put my head down and unpaused my game, ignoring anything further she had to say. Are you serious? She seemed genuinely livid. Well, insert child's name here. Sorry, buddy. Not everyone knows how to share, the woman said to the kid next to her. Her child started whining and kicking the seat in front of him. Thanks for this, she said to me. A sweet kid just wants to share with you and you're being ignorant about it. Before I could respond, one of the ladies in my row snapped back at her. How dare you bring that energy onto this plane? She told you so kindly that she doesn't feel comfortable passing her electronics to a stranger. The mother wasn't having it. She's an adult and can't share with a child for a few minutes of a nearly 2-hour flight. Well, you should have brought something for him to do then, the woman in my row responded, effectively silencing her. At the end of the flight, the woman collected her luggage from the overhead bins and said, I hope you're happy going against God's word, not sharing with a child. Some of the people around us chuckled as they had surely overheard the drama that unfolded at the beginning of the flight. I've encountered many entitled people in my life, but this stranger truly took the cake. The world really has an excess of entitled parents, that's for sure. I mean, seriously, you'd think there'd be more famous folks than Karens out there, but no, it's like Karens are taking over the place. Now, the girl handled this plane debacle like a pro. She was calm and used some serious diplomacy to explain why she wasn't in the mood to share their Nintendo Switch. And honestly, who can blame them? Those things don't come cheap, and who knows what kind of chaos a kid could cause with it. Also, there might be game saves there that any child might tamper with, or maybe the games aren't exactly child-friendly. So her message was crystal clear. The Switch was for her leisure on that flight, and no, she didn't plan on sharing it. But you know how it goes for Karens. They just see gaming consoles as fancy toys. They spot an adult playing and think they can ask for it for their kid. And much worse, that Karen even tried to make OP feel guilty by making her own kid cry. Classic Karen manipulative move right there. I never quite get why some moms act so entitled like that. Don't they grasp the whole it's my personal property thing? You can't just close up to strangers and ask for favors, especially when it involves pricey gadgets. As a mom, she should have come prepared for the long flight and packed some entertainment for her child. But no, she didn't. And she even had to bring religion into her statement, which is a bit over the top. Last time I checked, there's no Bible verse that says you'll burn in eternal damnation for not sharing your Nintendo Switch. Bringing religion into petty arguments is just asking for chaos. And all this drama in the middle of a cramped plane? Seriously? Luckily, there were some good-hearted folks on that flight who stepped in to calm things down. They were there to help, not stir the pot. We could do without more folks with supersized egos. They're the ones making our world a little nutty. What we really need are more kind-hearted souls. These entitled parents just get in the way of that. Story 4. This incident happened to me today. Just to give you a clearer picture, I work in fast food. During my break, I was engrossed in playing Pokemon Shield. Well, I'm saving Legends Arceus for when I'm at home with more free time. As I played, I noticed a young boy, around 7 years old, watching me. I glanced up and saw his mother observing us. She nodded, which I took her as granting me permission to interact with him. So I initiated a conversation asking if he had played Pokemon before. He replied that he hadn't, so I let him try the game on my Nintendo Switch. I mentioned that I had started playing Pokemon when I was his age and offered some pointers whenever he asked for guidance. My phone alarm interrupted us, signaling the end of my break. I asked the boy to return the game, which he did, thanking me for letting him play. As I began walking back to the staff room, I suddenly heard the unmistakable cry of a wild Karen. Ahem, a wild Karen appeared. I turned around to see the boy's mother standing behind me. Yes, can I help you? Wild Karen said, yes, you can let my son continue playing your game. You're going to be working now, so he can play it until we leave. We're paying customers after all. I'm sorry, miss. I apologize, but this is my property, and I need to put it in my bag now. Wild Karen cried out, no, give my son your game. Feeling embarrassed, the boy said to her entitled mother, Mom, stop. I don't want her game. It's hers. However, Wild Karen didn't budge. Instead, she raised her voice. Then, our manager came over, probably because I was running late coming off of my break. Is there a problem here? Our manager asked. Yes, she won't give my son her game to play with, Karen retorted. She's going to be working now, so she should let him keep playing until we're done. Karen wore a smug expression as if she believed her argument was flawless and that my manager would unquestionably side with her. However, to her dismay, our manager replied, "Ma'am, it's her property, and if she says no, that's her right. But I'm a paying customer. My son should be able to play," declared Wild Karen. In a polite tone, our manager responded, "Ma'am, if she's declined, that's the end of the matter. Now you can either sit down and finish your food or leave." Karen grabbed her belongings and stormed off to her table with her son trailing behind her. I genuinely felt sorry for the boy because he had been very polite. My manager asked if I needed a 5-minute break, but I assured him I was fine. I put my Nintendo Switch in my bag and resumed work. Dear entitled mom, being a customer doesn't mean you're entitled to avail of all other services, especially those not explicitly listed, such as an employee's gaming console. Love the human race. Now, looking at the girl here, she certainly has an excellent taste in games. I adore those classics like Pokemon Crystal, Emerald, Sapphire, and Ruby. But don't get me wrong, the newer versions are awesome too. She seems like a kind soul who channeled her inner Pokemon trainer during her break to teach this little one how to play the game. Sharing the joy of gaming, that's a really cool way to spend a break from work. However, not everyone is keen on sharing. We understand that some folks treat their consoles like precious gems. And that boy is a real sweetheart. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for his mom. As the girl was getting ready to clock back in, it made complete sense for her to secure her belongings. After all, leaving personal gear with strangers isn't a wise move. It brings to mind the wisdom of Hunter S. Thompson. In a world of thieves, the only final sin is stupidity. Not that we should be overly suspicious of everyone, but a hint of caution never hurts. I'm still wondering why Karens seem to be popping up everywhere like annoying Gengars these days. Sure, that mother wanted to make her kid happy, but it wasn't just the girl who was annoyed, even the kid was. The poor little guy even felt compelled to stop his mom. Like a child stopping his mom. Now that should illustrate how humiliating the situation was for the poor boy. And then the mother went full-on wild Karen mode, pulling out the "customer is always right" card. Now, that's a phrase with its place in the business world, but it doesn't give customers a free pass to do whatever they fancy with employees or, in this story, think they can borrow an employee's stuff just because they can. I mean, seriously, do we need to spell out the basics here? The Switch is her personal property, even if she works there. Perhaps some folks need a daily reminder. It could be a side effect of this self-entitlement epidemic where people get a little too big for their boots. They forget how their actions affect others, not to mention their families and the whole world. Isn't it time for some self-reflection and respect for others? Let's toss away that unwarranted self-importance and the accompanying disrespect. We can't build meaningful connections or make the world a better place with that kind of mindset. My heart goes out to that poor kid. Hopefully his mom will have a change of heart and learn from this experience. Although his mom is a wild Karen, change is a constant in life. People can grow and improve when they're open to feedback and take the initiative to shed some negative attitudes. Karens might possess strong self-confidence, but they need to steer it towards self-improvement and spreading positivity. We're all in this together, so let's focus on creating good vibes instead of bad ones. Hey, if you've stuck around this song, I'm sure you'll want to hear more about the bizarre adventures of Karens in rSlashProRevenge, the Karen that breeds Karens. Story 2 had me cracking up. I'll catch you there.